All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Culture Clinic, where we share ideas to help you shape great culture at your company so that your people feel appreciated, connected, inspired to do the best work of their lives. So, I'm your host, Skadiel, one of the co founders here at Gusto. Been helping people leaders build recognition programs to shape culture for about the last 10 years. And I'm joined by my esteemed colleague here, Kwesi. Quick intro for us, Kwesi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kwesi Thomas. Background in HR stems from being in high tech for a while. So I was at Nortel and then BlackBerry and then Shopify and then been on my own independently working with companies, especially sort of the startup and financial sector in particular, helping them grow and solve comp, benefit, and culture for the last 6 years or so.
Awesome. So we all know that culture matters now kind of more than ever, right? Like there's been some major kind of shifts in the world with COVID and kind of workforce going remote and obviously kind of millennials and Gen Zs now being kind of the majority of the workforce. There's also just with the internet, right? Like the speed at which information is being exchanged in the world makes it so easy for competitors to kind of copy products, copy marketing and sales tactics and all of this. And so culture is really the only sustainable advantage, right? And so one of the reasons that we want to kind of do this show and be chatting kind of weekly with you and Shelly is to just help more companies create great culture and get the ideas and the experiences and stories that you've kind of had over your kind of career and share those kind of with our audience. So today's topic is around holiday rewards and recognition.
Okay.
And just a reminder to the audience here, if you have questions for us, feel free to drop them in LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're tuning in there, and we'll try to kind of get to those. It is kind of an Ask Us Anything format. So if you have questions around kind of holiday gifting rewards, we'd love to tackle those. But if you have questions outside of that, anything kind of culture related, we can get into those as well towards the end of the show. So before we dive into kind of like just some of the questions, my first question for you, Kwesi, is why are you doing a holiday rewards program at your company? Like, why is this a good idea? So let's just kind of like start there. Like, what are your thoughts on holiday reward programs?
Interestingly enough, I think they stemmed from gifting or almost like a holiday bonus into doing different programs now around the holiday season. I think, our change in cultures and inclusivity, et cetera, have really caused us to rethink what this is about. And so it's a great question. I think for me, part of the challenge has always been trying to align what we're doing it and why we're doing it. And I think if we can figure that out, then we can actually do holiday celebration, gifting, all that stuff in a vein that makes sense for the culture. But it's really easy to just be like, it's holiday season, we give a gift, we give something, or we have a party, therefore we do it, and off we go. A lot of times for me, that meant I had a very small budget to try to do a lot of really cool things on a very tight time frame to a lot of people with a lot of different needs, with a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religious backgrounds. And I was like, holy crap, this is complicated, right?
And you got 3 weeks, go.
And you got 3 weeks, even though we always knew it was coming all year round, we always knew it was last minute because it wasn't high on the list. But I would say, for me, if you could really back up and go, okay, this is another point at which we can, I don't use the word recognize, but like, let's just use recognize another point in our culture journey for our company in terms of how our culture is shaped, and use it as that, or think of it in that manner. I think it becomes much clearer as to what makes sense for your company and what you're doing, because having a huge party may not match the culture you're building, or giving out $100 gift cards may not match the culture you're building. And so if you really put it in context of the culture you're trying to build, and not just it's the holiday season, let's hand out gifts, I think you start to get really clear on what makes sense for you and how to execute it, right?
Cool.
And pro tip for me, that also means I usually got bigger budgets because I can actually explain it in a way that wasn't giving away money. Right?
Right. Yeah. Because if we're kind of pitching it to the executive team as just kind of like a charitable handout or something, right? It's going to be much more difficult than if it's a strategic initiative to drive retention, right? At the end of the year, right, is a great time to reflect on all of the hard work that people have done, all of the challenges that the company has kind of faced, and people have kind of stuck together to get through, and we know that a lot of people are looking to kind of change jobs around this time, right? They're getting to kind of the new year, they're reflecting, and they're like, oh, maybe this is kind of a new year, a time to kind of change jobs. So we definitely, as an HR team, want to go into that holiday period doing everything we can to show people that, hey, we appreciate you here, and you've got a place here. We value you, right?
Correct. And it's one of the few occasions that you get to do that almost company wide, right? Like some companies may have some other initiatives throughout the year that are company wide, but most places don't. Mm-hmm. And so this is that marker of that you can either reflect and recognize the year, but also jump off into the year that's coming, right? And so I think it's a bit of both.
Cool. So I think we'll dig into kind of some of the tactics here. So let's dive into kind of some of the questions. So I've got a question here from Amanda. What tips do you have to make my holiday rewards more inclusive? So we were just kind of touching on that, but this is a challenging one, right? We've got people from all different walks of life, and especially as the organization grows and scales, when we're kind of 50 people, it's kind of a little bit easier to keep track of what's going to work for everybody. But you're 2,000 people. How do you do this? And what are some of the challenges that you've run into at BlackBerry Shopify?
It's funny, if I have I'll not only at the holiday season, I've run into this a few times. Some of the companies I work for did all sorts of company-wide gifts or company-wide events that happen throughout the year, and so I've always run into this at scale. Whether it's 2,000 people, I think BlackBerry, I was doing some events that were like 20,000 people globally, and running into cultural differences and trying to be inclusive is really hard, right? And trying to find that silver, like that one perfect thing that works for everyone, is really hard to do. And so for me, I tried, if we can get down to giving people choice, if we can find a way to give people some sort of choice in what we're doing, so that it can be, and if you've got 2 choices or 3 choices, not like 20, but a couple major choices, then hopefully within that you can give people a path that actually is that is inclusive enough for them, right? And it's still not going to be perfect. I'll give you an example. I did a holiday gift box for a company during COVID. I did it twice, actually, both years. And the gift box was it had wine in it and cheese and a bunch of other stuff and jam and stuff one year. And one of the problems we had was that some of the cultures didn't. Some of the cultures receiving alcohol, or they didn't want alcohol, for example, right? So we gave them choices: cider or alcohol, right? And so for the vast majority of people, now they were like, oh my gosh, you guys gave us choices that worked for most of us. And 99% of that was still good, right? We then still had some challenges with that, where some people, even in that, like, having choice still couldn't, the options didn't work for them. But at least with giving them choice, the feedback we got from both years were that it was inclusive and they had an option. They weren't stuck with whatever was being handed to everyone.
Right. And so if I'm hearing kind of like choice flexibility is kind of a key component here at scale, being, rather than kind of saying, hey, everybody, here is a dinner at the Keg Steakhouse. Well, it's not going to work for all the vegetarians, right? Or
exactly.
Here's some adventurous, skiing trip, or it'd be lovely if a company paid for your family to go skiing.
I was wondering who's giving out skiing trips and where I'm not. Those guys,
but we're working at the wrong company.
I know, but not even just. I mean, culturally, there's also just work style, right? A lot of that shift right now is happening with people going back to the office a little bit right now, and so I'm hearing and seeing a lot of people try to put back office parties or Christmas holiday parties, and that removes choice for some people who aren't now demographically, like they're just geographically they're not nearby. Like, so what happens with those people who can't come in or aren't comfortable coming in, et cetera? And so it's not just, it's become more complex because it's not just culture. It also is, where are you and how do you include the whole team, right? And so practically for there, I think choice is a big one. And I think we have to be conscious of how we take care of those people who can't participate because of something like distance, for example.
Or even timing, right? We had one of our employees telling us a story about how she was on a sales team and the Christmas party kind of always happened when she was traveling to some trade show event, right? And wasn't able to attend and just because of kind of like the timing of it. So is it a good idea to kind of survey employees and like ask them what they want? Like, have you seen companies have success with that?
I have. I mean, some people think it's opening Pandora's box by asking them what they want and then not be able to deliver on it. But I think, actually asking people, from my perspective, my way I work, I'd rather ask, have the information, and then make the best decision. I don't believe, at scale, maybe even if you had 20 people or 50 people, I don't think you're ever going to please every single person. But you're going to do your best to make sure that, as many people as can be included and happy, you do that. And so asking people what they think is, I think, a great thing, right? It's funny, that same gift box program, you thought, great, I'm giving away, cider or wine or something else, everybody's gonna be happy. But at 2,000 people, if 1% isn't happy, it's still a number of people, right? And so, not to say that you ever want anyone upset, but for me, at scale, you're going to do your very best and do your honest best, but you're not going to please every single person. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just kind of a takeaway here. It's hard to know what everybody wants and what's going to work for everybody. Right. So designing whether it's a holiday reward program or just a general recognition program, making sure that it provides kind of flexibility and choice so that people get something that they actually want is important.
Agreed.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so next question here. Let's see. Steve says, how should I handle holiday gifting for employees who celebrate different holidays? So similar to kind of the last question there. But there's a lot of holidays, right? And things often kind of get labeled as kind of Christmas parties or whatnot, but it's not being very kind of respective of all the different kind of cultures that we've got here kind of working at the organization. So how have you seen this kind of done?
Number one, we probably try not to call it a Christmas party.
Yeah.
We both done it already in this call. I'm like, crap. I know better, but try to, I think for me to try to, I think you've got to remove. I hate, this is a really difficult one because I think for some people, it's difficult to remove some parts of this from some parts of religion from the time of the year. I think for me, you've got to make it a holiday celebration. This is, if you look at this as this is the break we have in our work year. We're kind of all coordinated, have this kind of this time of season to sort of end the year. So spend some time with friends and family, reflect, and start a new year. And if you look at it as that, and so your celebration, whatever you're doing, gift, etc., is tied to that, and not necessarily the religious holidays that fall within those time period. I think you can adjust for different people's religions, etc. There are some religions that still won't adjust for, some cultures that won't adjust for. But I think again, for what you can do to your best is try to recognize that this is, regardless of religion, regardless of culture, this is the time of year in our work calendar that we kind of have this stop, some sort of recharge, a bunch of holidays together, and a kickoff into a new year, right? And I think whatever you're doing for that to commemorate or to serve that time, you have to do that within that context.
Right, because outside of kind of religious holidays, a lot of just corporate fiscal years line up with December 31st, right? Yeah. And so it often is a time where we're kind of pushing to kind of the end of Q4 and getting to kind of the end of the fiscal year. So just a really good time to kind of reflect on what's happened at the company, like regardless of and so with the various holidays, do you recommend kind of calling them out and or just kind of not mentioning anything about them? Because like if you start calling any out, then you might miss something. Or are there too many to call out?
Oh man, it's a hard question you're asking me there. In large organizations where I've been, I would have just done holiday, not touched anything else, because there's just you're going to miss something no matter what. My personal belief is you're still going to miss something. If you've got 2,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 people, you're going to miss something. So I think, for me, I would have shied away from that. You have a company of 20 people working at a furniture business, you might be able to work a little differently with that group than you do the others, right? But you have to understand your team, and you have to be sensitive to the team you're working with, right?
Cool. Okay, so next question here. This comes in from Angela. I'm working on a very tight budget this year. So something you kind of brought up right at the start of the session. How can I still deliver a holiday program employees will value?
We talked a bit at the start about this. Ignoring the dollar amount that you have to spend for a second, which I know is not perfect. Focusing on what we're actually delivering, like what are we actually trying to deliver, right? And you may be able to deliver on on the culture note you're trying to hit, regardless of the dollar spent. I have a colleague that was actually, I was preparing for this. She was mentioning a year where they each received, I think it was $20 or $50. That's what they received, but it was for them to pay it forward in some way, and then bring those stories back in terms of how they paid it forward, right? That budget's incredibly small, right? But through that time of year and season, some of them went out and did some things in the community. Some of them went and bought some things and shared them with people who had less. Some of them pooled their budgets together, did larger things. But I don't know that money has to be the restriction. It does force you to be very creative, and of course, I'd love to have huge budgets to do whatever you want. And I think I've had the privilege of that in some organizations, and some organizations not. But what I'm not a fan of personally, and I don't like spreading ourselves super thin. Like if we don't have enough money to go out there and do the crazy holiday event we wanted to do, then don't do the crazy holiday event at half the budget and try to squeeze it out. Let's figure out what we can do, right? That's my own view. I know that's not as easy said. It's easier said than done. There are leaders and people who have to say yes to all of what I just said, but I'm a proponent of doing whatever we're going to do with how much ever budget we have. It's going to be on note for our culture and the best we can do, right?
I love that story, just about kind of paying it forward, right? Giving everybody the opportunity to kind of pay something forward, setting up I imagine they set up like a Slack channel or a Teams channel to kind of share those stories internally at the organization as to how people were kind of spending those funds and paying it forward. That's a really cool idea. What are your thoughts on kind of, just around budget here, around kind of larger organizations having kind of hidden budgets, right? We've talked about this in the past where companies are almost not aware of the fact that there is budget being spent. So managers taking people out for lunches or doing this, that, and the other, running to the store, buying a bunch of gift cards, just expensing it. And none of it's kind of like coming through HR's budget, but it is being kind of spent on kind of recognition. And so how have you seen kind of like companies kind of like get a handle on that and kind of centralize that to run like a proper kind of recognition program?
If you could make the argument to get a better budget in terms of the HR team having a bigger budget, assuming some number that's not going to be spent by people doing their own things, and you can therefore give people a better program that all of the employees can participate in, that's the way to go about it. I said that in a really awkward way. Essentially, if you know that gift cards are being spent and other dinners are being had and lunches are being had, you can kind of say, hey, I had a $10 budget. If I assume I take all of that off the table and it doesn't happen, and I now have a $20 budget, then that's the way to go, because you've got a larger budget to do something that's more inclusive, than just ignoring the fact that that's still going to happen. I think one of the mistakes we make is ignoring the fact that if we don't give the team an adequate way to celebrate at that time of year, they're still going to do it. Whether leaders are doing it out of their own pocket or they're doing it and getting it approved by their leader who's just approving it at an expense, it's still going to happen. So let's not pretend like it's not. Let's either embrace it and give them a budget to go do it, or bring the budget all together and then do something that could be more inclusive.
Yeah, I hear this kind of over and over from finance teams where it's just a nightmare, right? All these different expenses kind of coming through and approvals being required. And so if we can kind of centralize things and empower the HR team to run that kind of rewards program, it'll just make everybody's lives so much easier. And to the initial questions, inclusive. And back to that, I do see a comment here from Emily. I think just in regards to the holidays and whatnot. So she says, such a tough one. I'm really hoping to work on empowering the team to share when they are celebrating their own holidays, which I think is a really good idea, right? And we do this kind of unconsciously internally here at Gusto, where we really encourage people to kind of share within Slack kind of when they're taking holidays and for kind of what reasons. And we've got kind of the water cooler channel there where people kind of chime in and comment and celebrate those occasions with them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's we have such our system in terms of how most of our companies and holidays that are all set up. They're so centralized around that sort of December holiday season. That's difficult. I mean, you can get really creative as a company in terms of time, even using some time away from work to ensure that people have those options when they get to their holiday seasons, instead of them having to dip into their, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 15 days, whatever it is. So there's some very, inclusive things that can be done. And, and I think even, doing those things in and around the time that or recognizing those things you are doing to be more inclusive of the other celebrations that happen throughout the year. I think it's a good time to also highlight them now, because there's such a large focus on what you're doing in December, November, December, right? And so it's a good time to raise it and actually, point those things out and encourage people to take advantage of those programs if you have them. I know I've seen only a few companies with newer programs that allow some, holidays around other religious times. I know it's a difficult thing to do and improve, but definitely highlight those things.
And so back to the budget question, because I'd love to just riff here really quick, give people some ideas of things you've seen in the past. If people are on a tight budget, right? So we talked about kind of giving everybody $20 to pay it for.
Oh boy, I think we just lost Gay. So I will wait for me to get back on the call, but I'll keep going. I think he was asking me what other ideas we have for when you've got a tight budget, right? And so other ideas. So centralizing or making the activity, larger for the team. So trying to pool the budget into a larger, more meaningful activity. I've seen that done a few times. Hey, Skay.
I'm back. I don't know what happened. My internet cut out there, but
I was about to do my own monologue. I was getting going while you were gone there. I wasn't sure.
Keep it going.
No, I was saying that one of the things I've seen is trying to pool the budget into a larger budget. If you're not having to break it down into individual $10, $20, $25, try to make it into a larger, more impactful activity. I'm not that I'm a proponent of just purely gift cards, but I think giving people the choice to use that in a meaningful way, if it aligns with the culture notes you're hitting, I think it's a great one. Making it personal, I think it's huge. I think for me, in recognition as well as these gifts, I think the actual gift isn't the highlight. It's the actual act of giving it and recognizing and thanking people. And so I think even if you have a small budget, but you can go out of your way to hand that small to deliver that small budget in a very meaningful way, the size of the budget, has some impact on some people. But I think you can. What's important is the actual delivery of that and how you're interacting with people. I've seen everything from videos, personalized messages, all sorts of different cool things.
And so just to kind of expand on that, at a company level, we could do kind of a big program, right? Where, the company is giving out gift cards or gift baskets or whatever the the program is, but it's difficult for the company to personalize things, right? And so, do you see more success when companies will take their budgets and empower managers with those budgets to deliver the recognition and include those personal messages and touch on the work that has been done over kind of the last year?
Yeah, I do think that's right. That probably took that for granted, but I do think, the closer you can bring the budget and the activity to the employee, the better the impact. That's my own view on kind of recognition in general, but also including the holiday stuff. So having it be some big ominous brand that's handing you a card with a message from the CEO, and not saying it's not important and it shouldn't be done, but it may carry more weight if that's also carried. You got a message from your direct manager or somebody who's closer to working with you day to day. And so, yeah, I'm a big proponent of pushing the budget as well as the activity as close to the employee as possible.
Cool. And so finding tools that can kind of help you do that in a streamlined way, rather than just we just hear it over and over again. We ordered 2,000 gift cards, and we've got all these offices across the country, and we've got to ship them all over the place, and some get lost, misplaced, and definitely want to kind of avoid that. I see a comment here from Noah, our head of people. So last year, this is a good reminder. We had folks make cards for seniors and send them out and share a picture of the cards with the team in Slack. It was great because people could do it on their own time and involve their families. So I remember all sorts of people at our organization doing drawings and whatnot with their kids and shipping them off to seniors. So that was a really cool idea. Yeah. Anything else before we kind of go to the next question? What about time off? So like extra time off.
Depending on the company, again, I would if it matches what you're doing from a culture perspective, I'm all for it. Sometimes hard to do for companies to think about how to give that, how to use it, but I think it's worthwhile doing if you can. But I'm a big proponent for whatever we're giving our employees should be rewarding to them in the sense that they are, we're not taking them away from the things that they love to do more. Like if we can give them time off for things like that, where they can spend more time with the things that they love and the things they love doing with the people that I'm doing it with, then great. I'm a big proponent of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question here from Kevin. What are the best strategies for holiday recognition for distributed teams?
Okay. I think for distributed teams, so let's breaking the two different pieces. There's the actual, here's a thing, and here's the celebration. I do think we should still be doing some of the things that came out of COVID that were really cool. Some of the virtual celebrations, the ability of people to do virtual games, do virtual parties, do virtual team lunches where everyone had lunch and everybody got a Uber Eats gift card and they all had lunch at the same time on like all of these creative ideas that happened during COVID, which I think were really, really amazing. And I think were a bit uncool to try before COVID. Like they were ideas that existed before, but we didn't think we kind of always brushed it aside for okay, we'll do it in person, and the people online will send them a T-shirt, right? But I think now we've seen that they can work. I think we should still be doing them, like wherever possible. They cost very little, and they're really effective. Physical distribution of a physical thing is still hard to do. I've done it more than a few times where I've been sending, gift baskets or, at one point at BlackBerry, we used to send out an annual gift to every employee, and all 20,000 people got the same watch or socks or Monopoly or whatever it is. And the logistics of distributing a physical gift, I've personally seen it at scale, and it's been a nightmare in some cases. But I think there are already many tools online that you can do really cool things and still deliver things to people that have meaning, and also deliver the message in terms of delivering that personalization to them that you can't do in physical delivery of something. But there is also still, again, some notes that are delivering something physical is tangible. You can touch it. And I think there's a bit of, I keep sitting on the fence, but I think it has to match what you're actually doing in your culture. Right. And so.
And like with that kind of thinking, like culture building, right? Like it's kind of an opportunity for HR people to pilot a bit of a program, right? If they're thinking about kind of like a recognition program that goes beyond the holidays, right? Yeah. The holiday program allows them to pilot some different things that they might want to try as like an ongoing recognition program throughout the year, right? Because if companies only do recognition at the holidays, they're missing the mark completely, right? Like this needs to be something that is kind of consistent throughout the entire year, and the holidays is an opportunity to do it at scale for the whole company. But is this like a good opportunity? Have you seen companies kind of pilot some different things at the holidays and go, hey, that worked, let's continue doing that kind of on a quarterly or monthly basis?
Yeah, the motion is the same, right? You're still wanting to say thank you to someone or say a message to someone, and you want to deliver something to them or give them some sort of something to commemorate whatever that message is going with it. So same motion as recognition. So I've seen some people, especially the last few years, do sort of the use online tools to sort of deliver a thank you or an annual message along with a gift card or a voucher to redeem something or do other things like that. And so I think that's still a great way to go about it. And I think for a lot of people, that motion, if we can do more of it, the more of it we can build at scale. And so I've definitely seen some companies do some cool things around the holidays like that. I've also seen one of the companies I was with a while ago, they gave all the employees a sum of money to spend in their customers' businesses, right? And so it's a bit of a double use in there, but it gave the employees.
Was this at Shopify?
I was trying not to name them, but yes, it was. We gave all the employees a gift card to spend within their own shops, which allowed them two things. Again, it built our culture of empowering entrepreneurs and for their culture notes, right? Empowering entrepreneurs, supporting their businesses that people are building. It gave some people some much needed orders they probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. And it got the employees also engaging with small businesses instead of going out to Walmart and buying that toy. For nothing wrong with Walmart, disclaimer. But I think if you can align, I guess I can really back up and go, hey, how does this align with what we're trying to do? You do some really cool things.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. We've seen here at Gusto a number of clients come in at the holidays, right, and go, hey, we just need to run this holiday program, and we need to kind of order a bunch of gift cards, and they get in there and they play around. They go, oh shit, like look at all the cool stuff that we could be doing on an ongoing basis, and let's set up our kind of milestone program here, and give a few managers some budgets to do this recognition thing on a regular basis, because they've, like you said, kind of had that experience and built that muscle around the holidays of giving all the managers budget to send out some recognition. And so they start to kind of see the value in it and the potential to kind of do this at a broader scale. Okay. Last question here comes in from Carla. What are some of the most creative holiday recognition ideas that you've seen?
Boy,
and we've touched on some of this, right? Kind of around the holidays, virtual parties. What about kind of award shows, right? Like we haven't talked at all about kind of core values and award shows at the end of the year for that. Have you seen that done really well?
I have seen different iterations of sort of award shows or just like, sort of recognizing people or recognizing activities or teams at the time of the year. For me, if you're going to do sort of any rewards or recognition that it looks like are more of hero awards where there's one person being called up specifically, especially that big a setting like annually, then you've got to have a really good recognition program the rest of the year. Otherwise, for me, it breeds a bit of a like, well, why did that person get awarded that, right? It's just so I shy away from like those programs unless I have a really good platform by everyone else's recognition. Is part of our culture. It's happened regularly. People are and so that calling up is kind of celebrated. It's not just like done once a year that we're handing out something to a select few people, right? But I've seen that done really well. I've seen we got really creative with people go like the lunches, etc. For me, a lot of times doing lunches at work where people get to stop and pause and some of the potluck stuff, I personally find people sharing culture is a huge opportunity, even if we can help, take care of the drinks and everything else. But I think people sharing culture through food is an amazing thing to do, no matter how small or how big your team is. For one company, it was an in person and not everybody could participate, but it's wine again. But we bussed everybody to a winery and they had just a nice old party. It's a lot cheaper than people would think, but we did. I've seen that done really well. The Secret Santa and the sort of exchanges and things like that. I think they have to be careful how culturally appropriate they are by doing the gift exchanges. But I've seen some of them work really well where people are just exchanging things that are funny and gaggy, and people are going to keep them in the office. Again, you got to depending on the culture of the team that you're working with. I'm trying to think of any creative ones I've seen.
Yeah, I and back to kind of like the Santa thing, like Secret Santa, right? Like even if we kind of just brand it as gift exchange, the challenge there, right, is if we say, hey, Kwesi, you're in charge of getting Skay something, and for a large organization, and maybe we don't work on the same team, how well do you know me, right? And then you get back into this kind of like inclusivity piece where you end up getting me something that might be kind of culturally inappropriate, or you might even send me something digital and I'm not kind of like digitally native, right? And I'm kind of struggling to redeem whatever it is that you sent me. And so I don't know. I see those kind of exchange programs potentially backfiring.
I completely agree. They the ones where I've seen it, I personally thought were run well when it was you weren't getting it for someone, you were getting it for general group, and then there was some sort of game that rotated them around. There's some things you can do, but again, that's more of gaming within the an event or a time of celebration where you're doing something together or whatnot.
It's like that episode of The Office where they all get each other a Starbucks gift card.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you a Starbucks gift card. I got you a Starbucks gift card.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, I mean, listen, this whole thing is hard. I think Emily said it well. It's a tough one. Like, there's no easy answer to this entire holiday celebration thing, and so I come back to doing your best, trying to be as inclusive as possible. I'm just thinking of an example of something I saw that was interesting, but for me, it comes back to I like a lot of the team building type stuff. If you ask me, okay, Kwesi, here's what do you want to do with it? I would do things that were engaged towards celebrating the time, recognizing the work that's been done over the past year, looking forward to all the stuff we're going to do next, and celebrating the team together before I'd want to spend money on here's a thing that was a token, that was a tchotchke gift that I went and put our brand on it or didn't put our brand on it. That's where I lean to in my own journey in this. Doesn't say it's the only thing I would say to do or recommend to do every time, but I think if you're going to give, then give it through. If you're going to give something, then give it choice. Go to a program that allows people to select whether it's a voucher, gift card, 2 options of physical things, but give people choice if you're going to do something. But that's where I go. So I go, really build on recognition through the holiday celebration and tied into that culture that you're building, and don't just give away it's the holiday season. Here you go. You Oprah, you get a car. Like, if you hand out cars, call me. But you know what I mean.
Everything's just got kind of a digital signature on it from the CEO and says thanks for your hard work. And okay, so let's wrap here and let's try to kind of I've been making some notes, so let's actually kind of summarize some of the things, and I think you hit on a lot of them there. But the first one, it's really hard to know what everybody is going to want and be okay with, and so it's important to kind of provide choice and flexibility. The second piece is around inclusivity and making sure that if you are throwing a holiday event or sending some sort of gift, that people that can't attend have another option if it's an event. If you are sending some sort of reward or whatnot, making sure that it is inclusive, right? It's not a technical experience for somebody that's not technically savvy, along those lines. Around the budgeting piece, it doesn't have to be a big budget. And I loved your point around, if there's not a big budget, it's better not to kind of throw a half-assed kind of event and figure out how do we concentrate this budget and make it more meaningful. So ideas, I love the idea around kind of giving everybody $10 or $20 to pay it forward and just sharing the stories of how they spent that money. Personal was the next one that I wrote here, and making sure that rather than the company sending all the rewards, it's better to actually empower those managers with the budgets so that they can provide kind of a more personalized reward for each of their employees. And then the reward itself maybe doesn't need to be personal. It can still be kind of a gift card with a ton of flexibility and choice, but the message on the gift can recognize some of the contributions that individual made over the year.
Correct.
And whatnot. And then I love this idea around kind of like using the holiday period to pilot a more sustainable recognition program. So if you've got some unique ideas, taking the opportunity around the holidays to pilot some of those, and thinking about how you're getting your managers involved in kind of recognition at the holidays, and how that might kind of look on a go forward basis. And then I made one last note here around the award shows, and that I found that was a really interesting comment, just that you want to be careful kind of running an annual recognition award show if you don't have a strong recognition program in place throughout the year, because it can really exclude people, right? Like if you've only got 5 core values at the company or something, and there's 5 winners and there's 2,000 people at the company, well, where's the recognition for the other 1,995 people?
Right.
Cool. Anything to add to that list?
No, I think it's hard. I hate saying it, but I think for the HR leaders out there, I think if you've tried to do your best to be inclusive, be mindful, you've done all you can, you're still going to get some percentage that's going to not be happy. But you've got to do your best to be broadly inclusive as you can. And I think on all of our programs that's always a struggle. But I think particularly around the season and these type of programs, you're going to do your very best, and hopefully if it's tied to your culture and it's hitting the note that you wanted to, then you would have been successful.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, it's been great to chat, Kwesi. I encourage people watching to follow Kwesi and myself on LinkedIn. Connect with us there. There's also a YouTube channel that we have with Gusto that offers just a ton of great videos around kind of culture building. So feel free to kind of follow us there, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next Culture Clinic episode. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.